Psycho is a 1960s American psychological horror film directed and produced by Alfred Hitchcock and written by Joseph Stefano. It stars Anthony Perkins, Janet Leigh, John Gavin, Vera Miles, and Martin Balsam, and was based on the 1959 novel of the same name by Robert Bloch. The film centers on an encounter between a secretary, Marion Crane Lee, who ends up at a secluded motel after stealing money from her employer, and the motel's owner-manager, Norman Bates Perkins, and its aftermath.
Psycho is seen as a departure from Hitchcock's film North by Northwest, having been filmed on a low budget, in black and white, and by a television crew. The film initially received mixed reviews, but outstanding box office returns prompted reconsideration, which led to overwhelming critical acclaim and 4 Academy Award nominations, including Best Supporting Actress for Lee and Best Director for Hitchcock. Psycho is now considered one of Hitchcock's best films and praised as a major form of cinematic art of international film critics and scholars. Acceptability for violence, deviant behavior, and sexuality in American films, and is widely considered to be the earliest example of slasher film genre.
Yes. Sir Alfred Joseph Hitchcock was an English film director and producer, widely regarded as one of the most influential filmmakers in the history of cinema. It's true. Known as the master of suspense. He directed over 50 feature films in a career spanning 6 decades, becoming as well known as any of his actors thanks to his many interviews, his cameo roles in most of his films, and his hosting of Alfred Hitchcock Presents from 1955 to 1965.
Born on the outskirts of London, Hitchcock entered the film industry in 1919 as a title card designer after training as a technical clerk and a copywriter for a telegraph cable company. He made his directorial debut with The Pleasure Garden in 1925. His first successful film, The Lodger, A Story of the London Fog, 1927, helped to shape the thriller genre, while his 1929 film, Blackmail, was the first British talkie. 2 of his 1930 thrillers, The 39 Steps, 1935, and The Lady Vanishes, 1938, are ranked among the greatest British films of the 20th century.
By 1939, Hitchcock was a filmmaker of international importance, and film producer David O. Selznick persuaded him to move to Hollywood. A string of successful films followed, including Rebecca for 1940, Foreign Correspondent 1940, Shadow of a Doubt 1943, and The Paradigm Case in 1947. Rebecca was nominated for 11 Oscars and won the Academy Award for Best Picture. His 53 films have grossed over $223 million worldwide and garnished a total of 46 Oscar nominations and 6 wins.
The Hitchcockian style includes the use of camera movements to mimic a person's gaze, thereby turning viewers into voyeurs and framing shots to maximize anxiety and fear. The film critic Robin Wood wrote that the meaning of Hitchcock film is there in the method, in the progression from shot to shot.
Yes.
A Hitchcock film is an organism, with the whole implied in every detail, and every detail related to the whole. By 1960, Hitchcock had directed 4 films often ranked among the greatest of all time: Rear Window, 1954, Vertigo, 1958, North by Northwest, 1959, and Psycho, 1960. In 2012, Vertigo replaced Orson Welles' Citizen Kane, 1941, as the British Film Institute's greatest film ever made. By 2016, 7 of his films had been selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry, including his personal favorite, Shadow of a Doubt. 1943, he received the AFI Life Achievement Award. In 1979, it was knighted in December that year. Knighted by the Queen, 4 months before he died.
After Hitchcock's death in 1980, Universal Studios began producing follow-ups, 3 sequels, a remake, and a made-for-television spin-off, and a prequel television series set in 2010s, and in 1992, the Library of Congress deemed the film culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant, and selected it for the preservation by the National Film Registry. Thank you, Alfred.
You're very kind.
All for you. I'm not hungry. Please, go ahead. You eat like a little bird.
You know, of course.
Well, not really. I hear that expression that one eats like a bird. It's really a falsie. I mean, a falsity. Because birds eat a tremendous lot. Oh, I don't know anything about birds. My hobby is stuffing things, taxidermy. And I guess I'd rather stuff birds because, well, I hate the look of beasts when they're stuffed, foxes and chimps and all. You know, some people even stuff dogs and cats. But I can't. I think only birds look well stuffed because, well, they're rather passive to begin with, most of them.
Well, it's a strange hobby. I'm curious, I mean.
Uncommon, too.
I assume so.
It's not as expensive as you think. Cheap, really. Needles, thread, sawdust. The chemicals are all that cost anything.
Well, a man should have a hobby.
It's more than a hobby. Sometimes. A hobby is supposed to pass the time, not fill it.
Is your time so empty?
Oh, no. I run the office. I tend the cabins and grounds and do little chores for Mother. The ones she allows me I might be capable of doing.
You go out with friends?
Friends. Who needs friends? A boy's best friend is his mother. You'll never have an empty moment you've never had an empty moment in your whole life, have you?
Only my share.
And where are you going? I don't mean to pry.
Well, I'm looking for a private island.
What are you running away from?
Why do you ask that?
No, people never run away from anything. The rain didn't last very long. You know what I think? I think we're all in our private traps, clamped in them, and none of us can ever climb out. We scratch and claw, but only at the air, only at each other. And for all of it, we never budge an inch.
Sometimes we deliberately step into those traps.
I was born in mine. I don't mind anymore.
You should mind it.
Oh, well, I do. But I say I don't.
If anyone ever spoke to me the way I heard her speak to you, I don't think I could ever laugh again.
Sometimes when she talks that way to me, I'd like to curse her out and leave her forever. Or at least defy her. But I couldn't. She's ill.
She sounded strong.
I mean, ill. And she had to raise me all by herself after my dad died. I was only 5. And it must have been a strain. Oh, she didn't have to go out to work or anything. Dad left us with a little something. Anyway, a few years ago, Mother met a man. He talked her into buying this motel. And we could have talked her into anything. And when, well, it was just too much for her when he died too. And the way he died. Oh, it's nothing to talk about when you're eating. Anyway, it was too much of a loss for my mother, and she had nothing left.
Except you.
Well, a son's a poor substitute for a lover.
Why don't you go away?
To a private island, like you.
No. Not like me.
It's too late for me. And besides, who'd look after her? She'd be alone up there. The fire would go out, damp and cold like a grave. When you love someone, you don't do that to them, even if you hate them. Oh, I don't hate her. I hate what she became. I hate the illness.
Wouldn't it be better if you put her in someplace?
An institution? A madhouse? People always call a madhouse someplace. Put her in someplace.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it to sound so uncaring.
What do you mean about caring? Have you ever seen one of those places? Inside, laughing and tears and cruel eyes studying you, and my mother there? Why? Has she harmed you? She's as harmless as one of these stuffed birds.
I am sorry, I only felt it seemed like she was harming you. I meant...
Oh, well, you meant well. People always mean well. They cluck their thick tongues and shake their heads and suggest so very delicately that they meant well. I've suggested it myself. But I hate to even think such a thing. She needs me, and it isn't as if she were a maniac, a raving thing. It's just that sometimes she goes a little mad. We all go a little mad sometimes. Haven't you?
Yes. And one time can be enough. Thank you.
Thank you,